Registered Behavior Technician Task List. Once again, hi, my name is Javanya Bell. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, and this video was made to help prepare to take the Registered Behavior Technician exam, also known as the RBT. In the field of applied behavior analysis, we have different subjects and areas in our field that we must master. This particular video, will go over the topic measurements. So section A in your task list is measurements. There are six topics in there. So we have prepare for data collection, implement continuous measurement procedures, implement discontinued measurement procedures, implement permanent product recording procedures, enter data and update graphs, and describe behavior and environment in observable and measurable terms. All these six areas, as an RBT, you should be familiar with it. And notice that when it says implement, I mean, you must be able to perform these actions too. There are three subtopics within the measurements category, data and collection and graphs. And then you have continuous measurement and discontinuous measurements. So this video will only focus on the first portion, which is to be data collection and graphs. And if anytime while watching these videos, if you have any questions, just email me and I will respond back to your email. And then, or I can give you my phone number and you can call me, text me, and I'll be able to help that way if you rather walk the question out. So the first area that we're going to cover is data collection. Data collection is very important in our field. Everything is driven by data. Um, our scientific measurements, the way we use it, we collect data, we put it on the graphs, we compare the data. So that's why data is very, very important. Okay. So A1 is prepare for data collection. So things you need to know. So first you need to know like what is the target behavior? What does it look like? What was the previous data collected? Review the client information. Do you have the data collection materials? How are you collecting the data? What is the reinforcement schedule? And gather all materials needed for your session. Okay. So a target behavior. What is a target behavior? So in applied behavior analysis, also known as ABA, a target is a behavior that has been selected for change. It can be an increase or a decrease in change. So some behaviors we want to increase the behavior in the client's repertoire, and some behaviors that we want to decrease the behavior in the client's repertoire. And just remember, ABA is used in many fields outside of clients with autism. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about these questions that you may see on the exam. ABA is used in sports, ABA is used in big corporation, ABA is used in animals for the zookeeper, ABA is used in regular school for children that needs like work on goals to increase in certain skills. ABA is very broad field. It depends on what area are you focusing. A lot of us start in the area focusing with children with autism, but to be a better practitioner, you would like to actually be knowledgeable in different areas so you can help a lot of people, or you want to just get more education and you want to like go in a different area of your learning and training. You want to be familiar with different areas. So examples of the behaviors include hitting, screaming, crying, kicking, throwing items, leaving group activities, using a loud voice, taking food from others, banging the head on hard surfaces, hitting head with hands, pinching legs, arms, cheeks, biting hands, arms, or legs. So when you see these definitions, you will see like aggression, self-injurious behavior, elopement, property destruction, property disruption. You would see non-compliance. Those will be like the subheading, and you have different ones underneath that. Stealing. So those are certain things you want to keep in mind that you may see. So what does it look like? So when we have a topography, it tells us what the behavior looks like. It tells us what the behavior sounds like or feels like. So you want to actually get the better idea of what are we working on and what it'll look like and what to take data on. It will help you being like taking data on the wrong thing. That's why it's going to be a clear definition on what it is, because your perception of aggression may not be my perception of aggression, and vice versa. With your idea of someone eloping is not my idea of someone eloping. So those definitions were very clear, so one will actually understand it, and it won't be no discrepancies. So what are we looking for? Elopement, climbing, tearing up property, disrobing, refuses to talk, raising a hand. Those are all type of behavior that we can see in many environments that we can increase or decrease on. Okay. How does it feel? The intensity, the emotions, thinking about sad, internal events, pain. Pain is something we can't see, but someone can actually vocalize how much pain. So like in the doctor's office, they like on the rating scale from 0 to 10, what is your pain level? And we tell them that. And sometimes the doctor's like, hey, I want you to keep track of this pain for 4 or 5 days, whatever, and collect data on it. You collect data on it too, right? So, oh, my pain was an 8 or 6, and depending on the pain level and how severe it is, depending on the next step of treatment the doctor would do. So same thing with us, depending on how the intensity or how it is, depending on how we would put a intervention plan and to treat the behavioral cause. Okay. What do I hear? Vocal protests, yelling, crying, profanity, yelling, increased talking, um, rebellious, not even talking at all, being mute. We could take data on that too. Some children are nonverbal and they don't have the vocal sounds, but we can take data on like any speech sound the client is working on or making, and we can see, okay, will the best treatment will be try to increase the speech sounds or use an AEC device or get in contact with a speech pathologist, or maybe we could work on somebody teaching a sign language, or we could do just a picture exchange communication system, so known as PEC system. So that's why we take data of different things. So what was the previous data collected? That's very important to know what was previous data collected to see if the target that you're working on is the intervention that you are providing, is it helping or is it not helping that particular target? And by you being able to read the graphs and look at the data that was having, well, that was given the day before, the weeks prior, you can see the idea like how it's working. Especially if it's like multiple therapists working on a case, you can see like, oh, why is this client getting it correctly in the morning time? And in the afternoon time, the client is not responding correctly to whatever intervention they're doing, or vice versa. If the client is responding appropriately in the morning time and in the afternoon, therapist is coming in and having all these behaviors. So it's very important to see it so we can come up with a better solution of how to intervene with this particular target. So maybe the client is very hungry in the morning, so I'm not listening, I'm not doing anything, or I'm hungry during lunchtime. So therefore, if you ask me to do anything around lunchtime, you're gonna see a lot of non-compliance, you're gonna see a lot of elopement, or maybe I'm just getting tired in the afternoon, you're gonna see I'm getting cranky, you're gonna see a lot of property destruction, you're gonna see elopement. So you never know what was the cause, the function of the behavior. That's why we take data and time data. Sometimes we have a scatter plot data collection that we're just checking the time of the behaviors are occurring. And so we get a better idea of how to intervene or make a better intervention plan for this client. Next, review client information. So you want to go over client information before the first session. So you have an idea of what the client likes, dislikes, how the client respond. Is the client nonverbal? The client use text system? What type of behaviors should I be aware of? Is the client allergic to anything? Allergic to smell, food, allergies? Is the client has been abused before? Things to look out for that. Anything that you know that is very knowledgeable to be successful in your session will come from the client information. It could be in their POC. It could be in their just treatment plan. It could be in their behavior intervention plan. It could be just talking to the parents. You know, and go there and introduce yourself and just talk to another client first. You also want to talk to your supervisor so you have a clear understanding of all the materials you need and how to use the materials, how to collect data for the client, what to look for, what are we working on, what's the priority that we're working on. Sometimes, you know, you get with the client and you find so many areas where the client have deficits at, and then you like, oh, I want to work on this, I want to work on this, and this. But as a BCA, we see that too, and we prioritize what needs to be worked on first, to take data on, to focus on during your session, and then we'll work on other things later. The client could have a whole bunch of deficits, but something needs to be worked on in an effective order to gain compliance or to increase repertoire of certain skills. Do you have data collection materials? So pen, paper, computer, data sheets, clickers, your phone. A lot of times now we have different apps to take data on. If you're very old school, we did paper and pencil. We took data on paper. We wrote our notes on paper. Also, it's very it's very important to learn how to do that way because God forbid your computer dies or your app's not working, internet not working, and you still have to be able to take data. How do you take data? Or all the ways to collect the necessary information during your session. Sometimes I have data sheets. Sometimes people just do like give me a big old synapse of what happened, and we can take data from that way. You can just be observing a client, so you can take ABC data, very detailed data, what's going on. You also want to be prepared for your sessions. Make sure your computer and your phone charger is working. Make sure you have all the necessary materials you have need for the session before you bring the client in, like come and sit down. You want to make sure you have the reinforcements. You want to make sure you have all the material. You want to make sure you have everything that you need to make your session go smoothly. Okay. And you want to be a smile, have fun. How are you collecting data? So in ABA, data can be obtained in many ways. So we have direct measurements. You want to best observing the client directly. You want to have indirect measurements. I mean, we are asking mom, we're reading through previous notes, previous records from different providers. Continuous measurements, discontinuous measurements. So in continuous measurements, we have duration, rate, frequency, and response time, latency. We also have discontinued measurements. We have partial interval recording, whole interval recording, momentary time sampling. We have permanent product. We have a task list, so task analysis. There's so many ways to collect data. And how are you collecting data? Are you using your paper? Are you using your computer? Are you using your app, using the data system? All those could be different depending on where you work at. So when you get a job working in the field, your job will go training on detail how they're taking what computer program are they using to take data on. So what is a reinforcement schedule? A reinforcement schedule tells you when the behavior needs to be reinforced. Just us as regular individuals, we need to be reinforced. It's definitely like you going to work and you working and working, and your paycheck is your reinforcement. If they pay you on time and they pay you the amount of money you work, you want to continue doing that job, right? If they miss a day or didn't pay you, delay you, whatever, they tell you, oh, your paycheck was be there at 12, but we can't get you at 3 o'clock. your work ethic's going to change. So same thing, same thing with the kids. If I'm working, I'm not getting praise, I'm not getting my stickers or whatever reinforcement that I had for that day. I'm not going to be as compliant when you want me to do something. So keep that in mind too. So rules that control the timing and the frequency of the reinforcement, delivery, and operant condition. We'll go over operant conditioning later. And this includes fixed ratio, variable ratio, fixed interval, and variable interval. And we will go over those in more detail at a later time. So also graphs. We have three particular graphs that we use in ABA. Some use more than others, but this first one is a cumulative record. It was developed by Skinner, B.F. Skinner. Um, Behavior that occurred over time. It's a cumulative graph, so it never decreased. It can display a flat line, which means no response, so zero occurrence of behavior. The graph can show an increase. The steeper the slope in the cumulative recording graph, the higher the rate of response. Keep that in mind. So this is just a picture of a cumulative graph, how it looks. So you can see in the beginning where it's like no response. This is 0, 0. Then you see a slowly incline, but you'll never see the graph decrease. Things to remember: just steeper the slope, increase response rate. Flat line means no response, and also the x and y axis. The x-axis means time, and the y-axis means rate. On the x-axis could be like time, date, session, whatever it is. So you have to make sure that you're looking at it. And the y-axis, it could be rate, it could be frequency, it could be time. So you have to make sure you look at that too. The record always increase, stay the same, never decrease. So just think about like a savings account. Think about increasing the sight words in your repertoire. For example, a savings account, let's say you're trying to make a goal to save like $500 before Christmas, and you will always put money in as a true savings account. We're not taking money out, we're going to keep accumulating. But maybe there's a time that you cannot add money in there, so it's going to stay the same. We ain't the money, we broke this week. We broke this week, we can't add towards our savings. So if you only have $50 next week, so you have $100. When you get to the third week, whatever, you don't have the $50 to put in there, so it'll just be $100 still. You still be the same rate. So it's not accumulating anything. So same thing with skills, with tacking, learning sight words. Our goal is once something is learned, you should never unlearn it. So I'm trying to learn a whole bunch of sight words before I get out of first grade. I'm going to master 10, next week master 10 more. But if I didn't master the requirements next time, I need to stay the same. And then next time I get another chance to master some more. But you'll never decrease the amount of words that you know, because once you know it, you know it. So you want to accumulate that. Or you say the same if you didn't get anywhere else. A line graph is very important. That's what we normally see too. So it still has an X and Y axis. The line graph, you have a baseline and an intervention. With the baseline, we do not provide any correction from the baseline. It's yes or no, whether you know it or the client doesn't know it. We're probing to get a baseline of what the client does know. And then the intervention is where we provide the teaching methods and the skills for increasing or reduction of behavior. Notice this is always separated by line, the baseline, and the intervention. On the next graph, we'll go in more detail. So line graphs are equal interval graphs. So it's like 1, 2, 3. You see the days are equal interval every day. Frequency every day is equal. And you'll see you have A, B, A. So it's like a baseline. And then the intervention is the praise, and they have the baseline. This graph probably was doing another intervention. So it would be baseline, praise, and then baseline and another intervention, but we're going to be the same data of disruption. I'm trying to figure out which one works. So the line graphs, most commonly used in ABA, and precision plane, the two dimensions are formed by perpendicular lines that intercept. You also want to make sure that when you see how the dots connected, the dots can never go over that one line and they never connect. So your baseline and your intervention data collection will never connect. And you don't have to worry about that because a lot of times you have computer generated stuff. All you do is put the stuff in and it generate the graphs for you. You want to look at the level, the trend, and the variabilities of those. Use line graphs when you want your data to effectively communicate as relevant quantitative relations. Number hits over time. It's also using the functional analysis to figure out the function of the behavior. The bar graph. The bar graph is used to display and compare discrete sets of data when an efficient summary of data is warranted. Also known as a histogram. The graph is based on the Cartesian plane 2. No distinct data point represents successive response measured through time. Used when display separate sets of data that are not relevant to one another and then summarize performance within a condition or a group of individuals. So this will show you a bar graph, and right now we're comparing your man's and your language communication, your social behavior, and your adaptive living skills with each other to see how we see progression in certain areas. So you'll see how it is over the time, and then as the skill is progressed, you see it went to like 100%. So it's 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100% is like within that repertoire. So this one says describe behavior and environment in observable and measurable terms. So everything must be observable and it has to be measurable. That's in order to collect data, you have to be in some type of measurement tool. To correctly identify a behavior which one track data on, you would need to have a clear definition of the behavior. So you have to have a clear understanding of what you're working on. The definition must be described in observable terms, needs to be objective, not subjective. An operation definition is a clear, complete, and concise description of the behavior of interest, also known as topography. In order for a paraprofessional or RBT to collect accurate data, they must know the parameters of the target behavior that are collecting data on. Okay. So that's the end of the session of data collection. So thanks again for watching. The next video will go over continuous and discontinuous measurement. It will also go in more detail with the fixed ratio, fixed interval, variable ratio, variable interval. Also, would go more detail with the operational definition, what to look for, and you have some examples of what to look for. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Email me, geminibehaviorhealth@gmail.com. If you do need to speak to me directly, just send me an email and I can send you a number to communicate through. Or we got another Zoom call. So thanks again for watching, and hopefully you'll watch the next video. Thanks again.